Today, I am going to do something uncomfortable and I'm going to tell you my story. Amazingly, it struck me the other day that I have been doing this work for this is my 17th year. I have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a membership, a private practice with hundreds of women inside it, and I have never once told you the backstory as to why I'm here. And the reality is, y'all, that the number one question that I get from a new or prospective client, particularly for one to one work or one of my group programs like Embody, is how I actually came. Like, how did I get to this work? What experiences have I had that have really led me here? And so today that changes. And to be honest, it's not my most comfortable share because I'm more comfortable sharing what I know and how to help and the magical mystery of yoga with you. But the reality is that I get that sharing my story is important because it's one thing to know that somebody understands you and the experiences that you've had, but it's another thing to actually know that they've been through it. And so for any of you that would benefit from hearing my story, and the real details of what my life has been like and what led me here, then this is for you. So I've said it 1,000 times over the course of my career, but I did not come to this work because my life was going well. I came to this work because I was, as we say here in the Southeast, I was a hot mess. And I needed to survive. So backstory, I grew up in a home that had a lot of love and play and laughter and family gatherings. There were so many family gatherings in my childhood. Peach ice cream and an ice cream churn in my grandmother's backyard with beautiful gardens. There were swimming adventures in the pool where my family would dress up in these crazy clothes and jump into the water. There was a lot of fun and play. And there was also a lot of confusion and heartbreak and the kind of quiet pain that nobody names for you or helps you with. And there were so many things that I needed that I really and truly needed. And it was never my job to ask for them. And I didn't know how to ask for them, and no one knew how to give them to me. And ultimately, my early childhood and that whole time period of growing up was really representative of me just not knowing when the bottom was going to drop out again. Growing up, I navigated a smorgasbord of childhood trauma, painted mostly by dramatic family struggles, mental health issues, and public scandals, my parents' divorce, and a lot of unpredictability and change. And also the particular kind of wounds that come from being in a faith tradition that taught me that I couldn't trust my own body and self. And also true, growing up in a church gave me so much. It gave me a relationship to God and a love for God. It gave me a connection to beautiful music, like music that brought me joy and brought me into my body. And it gave me a connection to community. But it also taught me some really important things. It taught me to fear God. It taught me that I couldn't trust myself and that my body was something that I needed to monitor, manage, and be ashamed of, not inhabit. So at 14 years old, I'm just becoming a young woman and I'm on the heels of so much trauma and change. And I enter into a relationship with someone slightly older than me. And what happened over the next 2 years in that relationship, if I just speak really honestly from the language that I have now and certainly didn't back then, was a lot of sexual coercion and like really multi layered, complex, controlling, and abusive relationship. This relationship was awful. And it wasn't just for a short amount of time. I dated this guy for 2 years. And truthfully, I didn't really understand what happened to me. And I certainly didn't talk to anyone about it. And I just knew that this person that I love very much was no longer part of my life because obviously that relationship did end. But so I'm in high school and I'm sitting in a sex ed classroom And all of a sudden, I start hearing the teacher talk about grooming and sexual manipulation. And I literally felt the wind get knocked out of me. I felt my throat lock up. I couldn't speak, and I didn't tell anyone for more than a decade. I honestly don't even know how long it took me to tell someone. And I share these things with you for all the women who are curious and have asked, but also because they're not footnotes in my story. These are the actual reasons that I do this work today and that I continue to do this work. So, what followed after that sex ed class and that realization were years of chronic pain. Specifically, I had a lot of low back pain. I had a lot of jaw and neck tension. I was clenching my jaws at night. I had debilitating headaches and migraines, an anxiety that actually just never fully left, and eating disorders, like multiple different expressions of eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, binge purge disorder, and even orthorexia, the one where you constrict and control. I like ran the gamut of eating disorders. And the reality is, those eating disorders were just me trying to control what I could control and to cope with the best tool that I had. And also, true, I was never, ever broken. I was always functioning. I was moving through life. I was working and going to school, and I wasn't whole. I was always in awe of spirit and spirituality, but I had definitely lost my connection to it. I was finding support where I could get it, and a lot of times that was in staying really busy and consuming different substances and partying. And I want you to know that I was really strong and resilient and capable, just like you, but I wasn't happy. And I had a body that was literally demanding my attention and had learned that the only way to survive was to stop being felt from the inside, like for me to leave that body and to stay vigilant. And I was also a seeker. And so I was literally going into Barnes and Noble. That's like the only thought that came to my mind about where I could go to look for answers. And so I'm constantly going to Barnes and Noble and perusing the self-help section and spirituality section, looking for books and answers. And this is actually where yoga came into my life. And from the very beginning, it was not about exercise. It was about healing. Actually, my first introduction to yoga was through a chanting CD and a meditation CD for emotional freedom. And as I got into like a class, like I took a yoga class, I realized, not consciously at first, but definitely now upon reflection, I realized that yoga was actually the first place that I had ever felt, even briefly and imperfectly, that I really felt what it was like to feel at home and comfortable in my body and in touch with my soul. I will never forget the moment of walking out of my very first yoga class and being like, oh my God, people feel like this? Like that light, like I almost felt like I was floating and it felt spacious. And I had no idea that people were walking around feeling like that in their body. It was illuminating. And this just cracked something open in me. And I literally spent the next 2 decades continuing to practice and learning how to stay with that feeling and learning how to go deeper. And I will tell you, early in my yoga practice life, I thought that it wasn't going to last. I thought the bottom was going to drop out of this too. I thought, of course, something that makes me feel this good and makes this big of a difference in my life, like it can't stay this way. I kept thinking that this next yoga practice was going to be the yoga practice where it stopped having that effect on me. But I can tell you, I'm still here, and yoga is still working its magic in my life. So I did so much yoga that it became my way of living. I did a teacher training, I did a lot of therapy and inner work, I journaled, I read, and I ultimately created a beautiful life, a yoga career that I loved, a wonderful marriage to my partner, Tanner, and we started our family together. And still, Even though things were going really well, there was still some things that were just out of reach. And then I experienced my first miscarriage, a devastating loss at 13 weeks of pregnancy. And then following that, the birth of my daughter. And I have three kids, if you don't know that about me. I have a son, a daughter, and a son. And something about having that daughter, especially on the heels of having the loss of the miscarriage, and then having this beautiful little girl, something about that experience just all added up and broke me open in a different way. And it sort of activated this like dormant stuff inside of me. And I went on a multi-year journey of finally understanding what had actually happened to me as a teenager and as a child, and all that it had cost me, and all the ways that it had impacted me, and all the ways that it had rippled out into the way that I felt about myself, and the way that I saw myself, and the way that I responded, and the way that my nervous system was patterned, and the way that my body had, survived but not thrived. And it just was like like I could see this whole picture, this whole range all of a sudden. And really, also, that season was about learning what it meant to actually receive and expand. I learned a lot about pleasure and about intimacy and about how to stay in my body and receive pleasure. And I discovered a lot about what safety and connection with myself and with other people, like what was possible in a way that I never imagined. And I still feel, gosh, I feel a little emotional recalling that and sharing that with you, because it was just such an opening. And now I am 40 years old. I have all three of my children. I have had two miscarriages. I have navigated pregnancy and postpartum. I navigated a massive health crisis with my husband a couple of years ago, and I feel more at home in my body and in my soul and in myself than I ever have. And I feel more free and I feel more alive. And I will tell you, like, my life is not perfect. It's still messy and complex, and there's layers. But I stopped leaving myself, and I have a level of self connection and self love and acceptance that has made all the world of difference. And this, my friend, this is why I do this work. This is why I'm here. That's the backstory that so many of you have wanted to hear. So, over these past 17 years, I have guided thousands of women through somatic yoga therapy and inner work and nervous system healing and devotional practice. And I've helped you, so many of you, bridge the gap between everything that you know in your minds and what your bodies are still waiting to feel. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I specialize in case you're new here and you want to know more about who I work with and how I do it. So I specialize in working with self-aware women who have done years of productive inner work. You've done personal growth, you've done therapy, journaling, you've done yoga practice, and you still feel like something is out of reach. A lot of the women in my practice have experienced early wounding that taught them to leave their bodies. And they have experienced childhood trauma, sexual abuse, and religious shame. These are the kind of women who are tired of living from the neck up, women who are so freaking ready for the kind of healing that goes all the way down and all the way in, all the way through. And my work, it really blends somatic yoga therapy, trauma-informed nervous system work, restorative and devotional practice with emotional processing work and soul-led integration. It works with the four pillars of you, the body, the mind, the spirit, the soul, because this real healing and integration that I'm talking about, it's not just happening in one layer of you, it's happening when all of the layers come together. As a yoga professional, I'm known for my calm, grounding, deeply compassionate, and uniquely powerful approach. I'm known for being able to understand aspects of a woman's story and give words to it in a way that she can't and help them to see things that she can't see. And I'm also known for giving women a roadmap of how to get where they want to go in all the nuance and complexity of what's happening. I'm also really freaking passionate about honoring the roots of yoga and being a channel, being a messenger for the teachings of yoga in a way that actually honors the real philosophy, the real truth of what yoga is, because there's so much dilution and there's so much um, watering down and stripping yoga of its essence that's out there that's frankly really popular, and it's missing the full range medicine of what yoga has to give. And at the heart of my work is one really simple desire, and it's to help women love themselves, every sacred part of you, no matter what, especially in the tender, messy, in between places of life. Because selfishly, that's what I needed, was women in my life who had that. And that's what I've done for myself and for my clients. And I can tell you the ripple effect of it is huge. And I think that so many women out there need this. And I think trauma and experiences move us away from that. And it's completely and utterly possible to live your life from that place. So, as all yoga therapists, I also have areas of specialty. So, those things that I'm particularly knowledgeable about and very good at helping women with. And of course, trauma informed somatic yoga therapy is the biggest one. But it's not just movement, y'all. It's stillness and contemplative practices. It's yoga philosophy and chanting. It's breath work and meditation. And it's so much more. It's svadhyaya, the practice of self reflection and knowing yourself deeply. I'm also obviously very knowledgeable at childhood trauma and complex trauma recovery, at religious trauma and faith deconstruction and reconstruction, at sexual trauma and embodied safety. I'm really knowledgeable about nervous system dysregulation, about body image and eating disorder recovery, about emotional well being and shadow work, about spiritual embodiment and devotional practice. I know a lot about women's health, pregnancy, postpartum, navigating miscarriage specifically, and also a lot about pelvic and deep core health. I don't say this a lot, but the movement practices that I share with you are all really rooted in that pelvic and core health and functional movement. I'm not so much about the exotic performative yoga poses. I'm more about the things that actually help you move through your life with more ease and feel strong and centered. And then I know a lot about mental health. A lot of my work really sits at the intersection of women's mental health, but from the lens of somatic yoga therapy. So if you wanted to talk about anxiety, depression, or burnout, I got you, girl. And then lastly, in terms of like styles of yoga, like physical styles of yoga that you might look at on a yoga studio's website, obviously somatic yoga, but gentle yoga and restorative yoga and slow vinyasa yoga. If you're just looking for somebody to give you a really intense workout, I am not that person. I want to talk to you just like straight into your heart for a moment, because there's some things that I think are really important to know about the women who find me. And I know that you're one of them because you're listening to this episode or you're watching this episode. So, the women that I work with are already brave. They've done the work of looking at themselves honestly. They've asked very hard questions. They've shown up for your healing. You've shown up for your healing, even when it was uncomfortable. And if you've experienced childhood trauma or religious shame or sexual abuse, or simply grew up learning that your body wasn't a safe place to live, and you've been carrying that while building a beautiful life on the outside, then you are not alone, and there is a way forward and a way to more freedom and more liberation. And I want you to know that my work is absolutely here for those women who are ready to stop living from the neck up and start living from the inside out. Let's talk about some ways that I can support you, because whether you're brand new to your healing journey or you've been on it for a long time, there's a way for you to fit into my world, whether you're looking for something that's low commitment and easy for you to access, or whether you're looking for really deep personal integration and healing work. I have something for you. So, the easiest way to start is to join me for a candlelight restorative yoga experience on Zoom. I offer these twice a month. They're 75 minutes. You get to practice from your home with your blankets, with your cozy clothes. And we blend gentle movement to settle your nervous system with deep rest and meditation and relaxation. I also offer a way for you to practice with me on a weekly basis inside the Nourished Woman Sanctuary. And it's a devotional online studio with over 160 and counting different somatic yoga practices and inner work tools. And it includes the live candlelight restorative yogas. And one of the best things that it has, in addition to all of that, is a community of women who are doing this work together with the same goals, with similar backgrounds, and that are showing up and logging in and doing these practices and gaining these tools. So you know you're not alone. You're with this body of women, even if just energetically and spiritually, who are sharing in this work with you. And that's $33 a month, and it's very easy for you to cancel anytime. And then, of course, I offer a way for you to work with me directly for deep one-to-one somatic yoga therapy and mentoring. And this is really for personalized, high-level integration work, for getting in there, talking through things, me guiding you directly one-to-one. And then I offer some other things as well. The best way to stay in touch with all of that is to get on my newsletter. And if you're like, gosh, I really don't know where to start, but I'd like to start somewhere, then I made you a free practice, and it is called Stuck in Your Head. It's to help you get out of your head and into your body. And you can find out about that free practice and any of these other things that I've mentioned down in the show notes. Y'all, it has been an honor to share this story because I've never shared it publicly before, never shared this whole extent of my experience. And I'm happy to do it. And I hope that those of you that needed to hear it got something from this that you needed, or maybe you're feeling validated in some way in your own journey. And one thing I want to leave you with is that just like you were never ever broken. You will never be too far gone. And you are not the exception. You're not the person that can't heal. Like, you can have access to all of this. And I know how resilient and strong and capable you are, and that there's roadmaps, there's ways out there. And I'm not here to tell you that I've got the only route forward for you, because you might be listening to this and you're like, gosh, she is not what I'm looking for. And if I'm not, go and find that person that is, and don't stop until you get the freedom that you're looking for. And if I am that person for you that inspires you and represents something that you're looking for and something that you're becoming and something that you're opening into, then I just want you to know that I'm here, relentlessly here. And that I would love to hear some of your story. So reach out and let me know how this landed for you, how this felt, and thanks for listening, love.